Imagine a nation that began as a collection of small colonies along the Atlantic coast, a land controlled by a distant king across the ocean. Now imagine that same nation rising to become the most powerful country on Earth. How did this happen? How did 13 struggling colonies transform into a global superpower that would shape politics, technology, culture, and history for centuries? This is the story of America's 250-year journey. A story of revolution, expansion, civil war, innovation, triumph, and challenge. This is the birth of a superpower. Long before the United States existed, the land was home to millions of Native Americans. Hundreds of tribes and nations lived across vast forests, deserts, plains, and rivers. They developed rich cultures, trade networks, and societies that thrived for thousands of years. In the late 15th century, European explorers began arriving in the Americas. Spain, France, and Britain competed for territory and resources. Among them, Britain established a series of colonies along the eastern coast of North America. Over time, these colonies grew rapidly. Settlers built farms, towns, ports, and businesses. Despite being under British rule, many colonists began developing a unique identity and a desire for greater self-government. But tensions with Britain were growing. After the costly 7 Years' War, Britain imposed new taxes on the colonies. Colonists argued that they were being taxed without representation in Parliament. The slaughter across the colonies. No taxation without representation. One of the most famous acts of resistance occurred in 1773, when colonists dumped British tea into Boston Harbor during the Boston Tea Party. Britain responded with harsh measures. The path toward revolution had begun. April 1775, fighting broke out at Lexington and Concord. American Revolution had started. Farmers, merchants, laborers, and volunteers took up arms against one of the most powerful empires in the world. Among them was George Washington, a determined military commander who would become one of the most important figures in American history. War was long and difficult. Supplies were scarce. Defeats were common. Yet the revolutionaries refused to surrender. July 4, 1776, representatives of the colonies adopted the Declaration of Independence. Written primarily by Thomas Jefferson, the document proclaimed that all men are created equal and possess certain unalienable rights. It was a bold statement. The colonies were no longer fighting merely for reforms. They were fighting for freedom. After years, American forces secured victory with crucial assistance from France. In 1780, Britain officially recognized the independence of the United States. A new nation had been born. Winning independence was only the beginning. The young country faced enormous challenges. It lacked a strong central government and struggled with economic instability. To address these problems, gathered in Philadelphia in 1787. There, they drafted the United States Constitution. The Constitution established a system of government designed to balance power and prevent tyranny. It became one of the most influential political documents in history. Soon after, George became the first president of the United States. His leadership helped guide the fragile nation through its earliest years. As the 19th century began, America expanded westward. The Louisiana Purchase of 1803 doubled the nation's size almost overnight. Explorers Lewis and Clark were sent to map the vast new territory. Their journey revealed immense natural resources and opportunities. Settlers moved west in growing numbers. New towns emerged. Railroads stretched across the continent. The idea of manifest destiny fueled the belief that Americans were destined to expand across North America. But expansion came at a cost. Native American communities were displaced from their ancestral lands, leading to suffering, conflict, and tragedy. Meanwhile, the issue of slavery divided the nation. In the southern states, millions of enslaved African Americans were forced to work under brutal conditions. In the North, opposition to slavery was growing. As new territories joined the country, fierce debates erupted over whether slavery would be allowed to expand. Political tensions intensified year after year. The nation was heading toward a crisis. In 1861, the American Civil War began. The conflict pitted the northern states, known as the Union, against the southern Confederate States. It became the deadliest war in American history. At the center of the struggle stood President Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln believed the nation must remain united. As the war continued, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring freedom for enslaved people in Confederate territories. After 4 brutal years, the Union emerged victorious. Slavery was abolished. The United States remained one nation. But the wounds of war would take generations to heal. The decades that followed transformed America. Factories expanded. Cities grew rapidly. Millions of immigrants arrived, seeking opportunity. The nation entered the industrial age. Inventors such as Thomas Edison introduced technologies that changed everyday life. Steel, oil, railroads, and manufacturing fueled economic growth. America was becoming an industrial giant. At the same time, social inequalities remained widespread. Workers often endured dangerous conditions, while wealthy industrialists accumulated enormous fortunes. Yet the country continued moving forward. By the early 20th century, the United States was emerging as a major world power. When World War I erupted in Europe, America initially remained neutral. But in 1917, it entered the conflict. American troops helped tip the balance in favor of the Allies. The war marked America's arrival on the global stage. However, an even greater challenge was approaching. In 1929, the stock market crashed. The Great Depression followed. Businesses collapsed. Banks failed. Millions lost their jobs. Families struggled to survive. President Franklin D. Whitaker Roosevelt introduced ambitious programs known as the New Deal to provide relief and stimulate recovery. Despite these efforts, the nation continued to face hardship. Then, in 1941, everything changed. On December 7, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. The United States entered World War II. American factories mobilized on an unprecedented scale. Soldiers fought across Europe, Africa, and the Pacific. The war demanded extraordinary sacrifice. By 1945, the Allies had achieved victory. The conflict ended after the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. World War II reshaped global history. It also positioned America as one of the world's dominant powers. Following the war, a new rivalry emerged. The United States and the Soviet Union entered a period known as the Cold War. For decades, the two superpowers competed politically, economically, militarily, and technologically.